Alright, so this is my presentation on adaptive planning techniques. Um, I'm going to be focusing on Agile, particularly the Scrum Agile development and what it takes to do Agile development and the workflow and how everybody's supposed to come together. So the first thing is Waterfall has been around for longer than I'm longer than me. Um, It requires a bunch of planning. There's quite a bit of issues with it nowadays, where you need to have lots of pre-planned projects in place, and you have to have a good hard baseline, and then you move to development, then construction, testing, and so the problem with that is it can take anywhere from 6 months to 5 years. And a lot of times it takes years. And generally, when it's ready, the market has changed so much, or the business, or the client, or whoever, whatever you're developing it for, say if it's the users, they might have moved on to a different operating system, or, that's not an issue anymore. Another company beats you to it um, due to the approach of agile development, which is essentially adaptive. You can do a lot more. Um, you're able to basically adapt to change than have a set flow structure. Um, and generally, I found this good framework online. And generally, the product owner or your client is going to come over to you. There's going to be a scrum master, basically the manager, the person who's in charge of the scrum, the team members, the people who are actually developing the product. Um, and now there's lots of approaches, lots of benefits of agile development, um, because you can adapt and you can make changes on the fly. Now, generally, the whole approach is the product owner comes to the company, and the product owner gives, hey, I say I want to make this game, right? And there's going to be a manager, scrum master. They're going to find a bunch of team members, and then they're going to go and they're going to have daily scrums, basically meetings, to review what they need to do. And it's broken up into sprints. So generally, sprints are going to last which this whole process right here is a sprint, where you plan it out, right? So you do a meeting, you get a vision, then you actually go about developing it, implementing it. You do it requires a lot more meetings, more than waterfall. Um, then what's going to happen is you're going to go about implementing it. You're going to do a review, and you're going to see if it's ready for shipment. Now, generally, you're going to want a sprint to last anywhere from 1 week to 4 weeks. Generally, I think most companies, from what I've read, it's anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks um, to do for a whole sprint. Um, the goal is usually to have the product ready. Um, well, I mean, it depends on the scale of the actual project and the scale of it. So I guess it depends on if you're a small team, you could probably push out a product, and if it's in a small scope or scale, a month maybe or two before you actually have a product. Now the benefit with Scrum, also, the Agile Scrum framework, is you're constantly updating and improving software and the whole back end, and it's constantly being updated. It's a loop. Um, Now the downsides with that is if you don't have um, a really good way of releasing those updates, generally it's going to be a bad experience for the consumer or your users, because when you release an update, the UI is going to maybe you did some UI changes, and then somebody has to do a presentation, it doesn't work properly, or you make a change, you think it's ready to go, and maybe you didn't go through the review phase enough, and you didn't do enough testing. Um, that's going to break stuff if you do release that update into production. That's why it's very important that you have a release plan. Um, and and that you have a release plan and you have a full scale of what you want to do. Um, Generally, the person who's going to okay and give you what you need to focus on is the product owner. He's going to give you a list of the top priorities, top prioritized things that need to be implemented. Um, but yeah, generally um, that's generally what Scrum is good for. I've actually have followed. I was part of the Scrum team members in the Idea Lab for a product or project, I guess. And we had weekly meetings just due to time constraints. But if it was a full-time job, I could see definitely having a daily Scrum meeting because that's the whole key to being agile is being able to communicate with everyone. And basically, if you're not communicating with people, agile isn't going to work. And so that's what I found so far.